30 years later, one of the greatest feelings, I always thought that, every coach dreams of winning a national championship. And every coach, it's very hard to even explain how good you feel inside that you were able to get to the pinnacle of the game of basketball.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are in the Hall of Fame room here at the Broyles Athletic Complex. In just a moment or two, Arkansas Athletic Director Frank Broyles is expected to announce that Nolan Richardson of Tulsa will be the new head basketball coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks.
So I am very proud, excited to present to you the new era of Razorback basketball, Nolan Richardson.
April 9th, 1985. Nolan Richardson becomes the head basketball coach at the University of Arkansas, succeeding the legendary Eddie Sutton. He's 43 years old and brimming with confidence.
Thank you very much. I'm certainly excited about this moment. I am not a politician, so I don't make big promises. But there is one promise that I must make, and I will say to you that we will be there.
Everywhere I've already had gone, I won. I took a little school at Bowie High School, not a player over 6 feet tall, and start winning 30 games a season. And then I get the junior college job, and in 3 years I win the national championship, which is what I went there for. I get the Tulsa job. We win the NIT national championship. Now I'm coming to Arkansas. Well, what's going to stop me from thinking that I can't win a national championship?
He was the first black head coach at the University of Arkansas, first black head coach in the South. And Coach Richardson was an intimidating figure at that time.
Post up. There he is!
He was very aggressive coaching. He was hard on the guys. He coached them hard.
Yeah, that's the way to work, and that's it, see?
I never heard a voice like that booming through a gym or an arena like his voice did. I never saw him yell or anything at a manager or any kind of student trainer. Never. He treated everyone with a lot of respect. He was hard on the players, and he coached with a fire and I'm not going to say an anger, but kind of an anger at times. And he was very, very motivated to win basketball games and to prove to people that he could coach.
It's a bunch of crap. Let's go, Red, baby. Take the ball back out.
But for Nolan Richardson, success at Arkansas did not come right away. His first team won just 12 games. They finished 7th in the Southwest Conference and missed the NCAA Tournament.
The players that he had were Coach Sutton's players who played a different style than Coach Richardson had over at Tulsa. And there was a lot of negativity out there about him. Did Arkansas make the right decision?
Off the court, things were even worse.
Worst time of my life. Worse. I hated basketball. It kind of took me away from what I needed to do.
1 month before he accepted the job at Arkansas, Nolan Richardson's 13-year-old daughter Yvonne had been diagnosed with leukemia. His greatest professional opportunity had arrived just as his family was in crisis.
We went through that period, and at the same time, I'm losing a daughter. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. I mean, the first 2 years was just, it was a very, very difficult time.
Faced with endless trips to Tulsa for Yvonne's treatment and hearing the criticism from fans at home, Richardson considered walking away from basketball, returning to school, perhaps becoming a principal.
Get back!
But just as Yvonne Richardson proved to be a fighter, so did her dad.
He's going through this family crisis with his daughter, and he's able to then come here to practice and coach these kids up. Now, when he left, he was going to focus on his daughter. But when he was here, he was focused on how can I get him better, how can I get him better, how can I go out and get better players, all these things.
The reason Coach Richardson took the job at Arkansas was his daughter. Yvonne was the one who really said, Dad, you got to do this. You want to win a championship, you want to win a national championship, and I think we can do it at Arkansas.
After a brief period of remission in the summer of 1986, Yvonne's condition worsened. Arkansas Athletic Director Frank Broyles suggested his coach take a fully paid leave from the team. But Nolan refused to step away. He had a job to do.
The kids, the players, they always knew that he loved them. And once you get those kind of players on board and understand that this guy loves me, they'll go through a brick wall for you.
Your daughter's dying. He went through a lot of stuff, but when I got here, he was a coach that was extremely determined because he felt like he had something to prove. And I think he was doing a lot of that in the name of Yvonne.
On January 22nd, 1987, halfway through Nolan Richardson's second season at Arkansas, Yvonne died. She was 15 years old. In his grief, her father found solace in the game that he loved.
I renewed my vow to the game of basketball. I think I worked twice as hard. Tried to get better at recruiting. My assistants were better. My players got better as the times went on. And then we started pumping wins into the program.
The Razorbacks rallied around their coach. And when they stormed back from a 21-point deficit to win a momentous postseason game against Arkansas State, the future came into focus.
Here comes Todd Day, Lee Mayberry, Oliver Miller in the fall of 1988.
That special group, you know, the second triplets, is that what we call them? I think, you know.
You had two of the top 10 players in the country, Todd, Lee. Big O was a top 30 player in the country. You had Lindsey Howell, who was one of the best junior college players in the country. You had Daryl Hawkins. You were loaded.
We came in maybe 6 freshmen, if I'm not mistaken, myself, Oliver Miller, Lee Mayberry, Daryl Hawkins, Warren Lynn. Yeah, we had like 6 freshmen that year, so we just called ourselves the funky freshmen. We just come in and just try to wreck shop every day at practice. We all wanted playing time.
We worked hard at recruiting players to get them here, and then when we got them here, we worked them hard on fundamentals to get better. But when you got some great players, you can shoot it, and we can defend, and we can rebound. Things just kind of fall into place.
We had a lot of guys who were very versatile on that team, and I think that's what Coach really recruits, is a lot of guys who can play a lot of positions and do a lot of things.
The 5-year period, it just looked like it just popped out there, and before you know it, we were off and running.
Between 1988 and 1991, Nolan Richardson's Arkansas teams averaged 29 wins a year. Stylish and confident, they captured the imagination of basketball fans across America.
We became a team that not only the Razorbacks like to watch, but other places around the country would say, hey, boy, I like to watch your team play. They're a lot of fun to watch. And that's what I wanted. A team that everybody wanted to watch.
And I just remember the excitement level was off the chart. Everybody was talking about Razorback basketball.
At the core of the team's success was a relentless commitment to hard work.
Nice pass.
An approach to the game that came to be known as 40 minutes of hell.
As Coach would call it, the 40 minutes of hell was in practice. We're going to do some drills, and then we're going to do some 1-on-1, some 2-on-2, some 3-on-3, some 4-on-4, 5-on-5, and we're going to scrimmage. Because that's what you do in a game. You always want to say, what can we, let's take our practice to the game.
We used to call it an hour and a half of hell, because that's how long practice was. We only got to do the 40 minutes in the game.
What we're trying to do is push it down here. Doesn't mean that we got a shot down here.
It was full court drills. It was him in your face. It was aggressive. It was really intense. And then the scrimmaging came.
A lot of times we'd go 5-on-5 for 4 minutes. Well, why do you go 4 minutes? Because there's always a TV timeout. If a game ever goes that long without a foul or something, you can go 4 minutes. Well, how many teams can really go 4 minutes without stopping?
The one thing about Coach, he really didn't prepare for the next team. He just tried to make sure that we were prepared as a team.
He wanted Lee Mayberry going against Todd Day. He wanted Lee Mayberry to have to bring the ball up against Keith Wilson or Arlen Bowers. That set up some competitive stuff. It was a different era. It was a little tougher, a little more hardcore, but that's how he did it.
No one outworks the Razorbacks. No individual, no team can outwork us.
Well, he was a better X and O coach than people thought, and he would draw stuff up, and he did want things executed. He did run plays, but it was about people for him and getting the best out of them. and letting them also be an instinctive basketball player.
It worked. By the spring of 1990, Nolan Richardson and his Razorbacks had reached the Final Four. Though they lost in the semifinal to the Duke Blue Devils, they were knocking on the door of their ultimate goal, a national championship. But to finish the job, it would take another group of players.
Then 92, 93, here comes Lee and Todd and Big O are gone, and you got Corliss and Scotty coming in.
The Arkansas Razorbacks entered the 1993 college basketball season with a young but talented roster, led by a homegrown sophomore named Corliss Williamson.
Monday, baby.
Big Nasty, Gatorade Player of the Year. I mean, he was by far the best player, you know, that was coming out of Arkansas, particularly that year.
Well, greatest player in Razorback basketball history. Strong, physical. He always played like he was 6'10", and he was 6'7". He knew how to score. He had a soft touch. He could make free throws.
He didn't go visit any other school. He knew where he wanted to go to school. He knew who he wanted to play for.
A little bit undersized for a post player, but had a heart as big as Arkansas and wanted to be a Razorback.
Oh, y'all just be ready for me. We're gonna do it next year.
Undersized was not a word used to describe Darnell Robinson, a 6'11", 270-pound freshman from Oakland, California.
He had the potential of being one of the best big men because he could dribble, he could pass, he could shoot the ball pretty good, and he had the size.
Pretty good athlete. If he got any kind of gap, he was going to try to tear the basket down, but he could shoot the basketball.
Robinson nails the three.
His fellow freshman and fellow Twin Tower was Lee Wilson.
Waco, Texas guy, strong. He had some back to the basket moves. You know, he could step out and shoot it as well. Skilled. He could pass the basketball. It would have been hard to win that national championship without Lee Wilson.
Dwight Stewart was also listed as a center.
Big man. They call him the big dog.
But anybody around for that size.
Great shooter, great team player, underrated rebounder, a good foul shooter, good passer, Memphis kid, had that Memphis toughness to him, and a winner.
Inside the paint and out, the Hogs were rock solid. Junior guard Corey Beck was the heart and soul of the team.
He was the guy that pushed the buttons, and he could talk. He was the vocal leader. Corey was one of the toughest kids I've ever coached.
Strong, physical point guard, tremendous defensive player, underrated offensive player, rebound. He would post up guards nonstop.
There's got to be somebody on that team that can kind of manage things when the coaches aren't there, and that's Corey Beck. He was the floor general for us.
His backcourt mate was Clint McDaniel.
When I think of Clint McDaniel, I think of toughness.
He went from a leading scorer in Oklahoma, Tulsa area, to a defensive demon.
Clint came here as an offensive specialist out of Tulsa and became probably one of our best defensive players that we've ever had around. And he saw where his role could be, how I can play more, and if that's what you need, that's what I'll do.
Yeah, I told him, you know, you're quick enough that you can play ping pong by yourself, man, so let's start using it. And he did.
The team's wild card was a 25-year-old junior college transfer from Bessemer, Alabama, named Alex Dillard.
Dillard, three, yes. He can flat out shoot the rock, baby. This guy is a downtown shooter.
He shot the ball from deep before it was fashionable.
Dillard for three. Got it!
I saw him once make 23 three-pointers in a row with his left hand. He's a right-handed shooter.
He took about a 50-foot jump shot, and he missed it. Well, wait, what are you doing shooting the ball out that far? He said, Coach, I was open. I said, I'll leave you open all night too, if you're gonna shoot from there. And he goes back again, and he shoots another one, and he makes it. Nice shot, son.
Piece of cake.
And then there was Scotty.
Back inside low to Thurman's going to take his man to the hoop, and a pretty running jumper by Scotty.
Well, Scotty was the man. And if people don't know how good Scotty was.
Scotty, one of the greatest shooters to ever play here, one of the most confident players to ever play here, and he was a gamer.
Had a lot of confidence, always had a little swagger about him, and just had that ability to hit shots at the right time when you needed it.
A 6'6" swingman from Ruston, Louisiana, Scotty Thurman had arrived on campus the previous fall, drawn to Arkansas by his friend Corliss Williamson and the team's dynamic head coach.
And so he had a huge impact on it. I mean, it was probably, 75, 80% him. Growing up in that time, there weren't a lot of African-American coaches. And so that was a big deal for me. I had never played, for a black coach before. And so that felt, real comfort for me at that time.
Scotty, was probably one of the best players I've ever coached. A guy you can tell whether he's behind 20 or up 20. He didn't change expression. He just stayed and played.
Top 5 greatest Razorback basketball player of all time.
As a freshman, Scotty had made an immediate impact, starting every game, leading the team in scoring, and helping them advance to the Sweet 16. All as his fellow freshman phenom Corliss Williamson played just 18 games due to a foot injury. Now, a year older and healthy, the team was ready to take a leap.
Yeah, we felt like we were good enough to win it all. I mean, we had everybody back. We had spent quite a bit of time together. And so, even though we were sophomores, we really felt like we were experienced guys because we had played 30 games together and we spent a lot of time together that summer and the summer leading up to 93, 94. And so
all of our guys seemed to fit the puzzle of what we tried to do. I knew that if we take care of business and put ourselves in a position that we'd have a chance to go all the way.
Arkansas basketball opened the 1993-94 season in a brand new arena, an enormous state-of-the-art facility modestly nicknamed the Basketball Palace of Mid-America. It was formerly known as Bud Walton Arena.
I've wondered so many times if we hadn't moved here, would we have won the national championship? I think we probably would have because Barnhill was so special. But coming in here, it was new, it was shining, it was the palace. And now we had 20,000 people that could come instead of 9,600.
Folks that come up from Lake Village, they come from Texarkana. They didn't care if the game was at 8 o'clock or 8:30. They're going to be here because it's an event.
Well, Nolan Richardson put 20,000 people in here. You can look it up in a media guide. 67 times. 67 times.
And you knew there were times in which teams would come here and you'd listen to the coach. Well, we hope we play well. Hell, you're not going to play well. You're going to get beat.
The Arkansas Razorbacks christened their brand new home, Bud Walton Arena, tonight.
The Razorbacks opened Bud Walton Arena on November 29th, 1993, with a 93-67 win over Murray State. After the game, Clint McDaniel said if the noise in Barnhill was a 10, this is a 20.
That night, boy, it was about 25, 30, boy, because the fans came from far, near, everywhere, just first of all to see the new beautiful facility that the university has gotten on its campus, and basketball has, to me, has really arrived to an all-time level.
I mean, there were times during the game in which I could not hear Coach talk, and I'm kind of leaning in, but you could not hear him because it was so loud.
3 days later, Bud Walton Arena was officially dedicated as the Missouri Tigers came to town.
And we were still so fired up from the first game that poor Missouri.
It was the first game to be nationally televised from the Palace, and the home team was ready to make a statement.
That is a game that I can never describe to anyone and make sense. You got our rebound. Yeah, but we won by 52.
7 Razorbacks scored in double figures.
It didn't matter who I put in the game. They were making shots.
And the Hogs' pressure defense forced 27 Missouri turnovers.
It was a perfect storm.
The Tigers had experienced 40 minutes of hell. The final score, 120-68.
The crowd that night was phenomenal, and then we got off to such a good start, and it just flowed.
It became more of a celebration more so than a game because it was really nothing that we could do wrong.
I got a kick out of Norm Stewart. He comes over to me after the game, he's over, he says, and in his voice, Nolan, he said, you're either damn good or we're damn bad.
Turned out that, we were really good, and they were really good too. And they went back into their conference, the Big 8, and they played 14 league games back then, 7 schools, 2 times each, 14 games. Missouri went 14-0, and they had a tremendous season that year. but they come in here and lose by 52 points.
You see with evidence of our game versus Missouri, how we were locked in and ready to go. And I think that's what caught the nation by surprise and let everybody know that we were going to be a team to be reckoned with.
The following week, for the first time since 1978, the Razorbacks were ranked #1 in the Associated Press poll. 9 years after arriving at Arkansas, Nolan Richardson sat atop the world of college basketball.
Oh, I wanted it bad because I thought we had the team that could support that #1.
We came in my freshman year after Todd Day and Lee Mayberry and that group left, and I think we were preseason number 47, 48. And then you fast forward just barely a calendar year later, and you're #1 in the country.
Those things kind of help drive coach and motivate him to pick up the pace a bit more during practices. Maybe not longer, but more intense. Okay, we're going to play these folks here next week, and if you want to stay #1, you've got to do your job against them.
For us, it kind of told us what Coach Richardson already had been explaining, which, you get to write your own narrative.
3 days after Christmas, the Razorbacks were back in Bud Walton, where they overpowered Texas Southern in a blowout win. The game was notable not for what happened on the floor, but for who was in the stands.
Well, there he is, ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States of America, Bill Clinton.
In 1993, America's commander-in-chief also happened to be Arkansas's biggest fan. Bill Clinton had become obsessed with Razorback basketball while working as a law professor in Fayetteville during the 1970s. His relationship with Nolan Richardson went back years. He hosted a party for the coach at the Arkansas Governor's Mansion the night he was hired.
When the game was done, President Clinton and Miss Clinton came in the locker room because he knew everybody. Al, Clint, Nolan, Wayne. It's like, you're the leader of the free world, and you're talking to all of us and using the names. It meant a lot to the players in the locker room, so it was a pretty special night.
As the new year got underway, the Razorbacks began to square off with familiar foes from the Southeastern Conference, losing for the first time in a 2-point game at Alabama, and 11 days later in a 1-point game at Mississippi State.
Both games could have been won. You're one play away from winning. And even with all the adversity, we were still just one play away from winning those ball games.
In the loss to the Bulldogs, Clint McDaniel suffered a dislocated shoulder, and critics began wondering aloud about the team's mental toughness in close games.
And it's like, okay, we'd lost to Mississippi State, we lost by 1 or 2, we lost to Alabama by 1 or 2. Okay, have we peaked already?
If the Hogs were going to get back on track, they'd need to do it on the road in Knoxville, Tennessee.
That was big for us because we couldn't win in Tennessee very much at all.
The game with the Volunteers was a struggle. Down 64-62 with 9.3 seconds to play, the ball found Scotty Thurman. His game-winning three-pointer would come to be known as the biggest shot of the regular season.
Maybe. I remember not playing very well that game. I remember, that shot being kind of the highlight of my night as far as an individual player, but I didn't really care. I was just excited to get the win.
Over Scotty's career, he had 7 chances of winning ball games. Taking the last shot, he made all 7.
That shot seemed like, oh, we can do this on the road, because we hadn't. I think it was a boost of confidence, yes.
Tom Hammond, Larry Conley welcoming you back to Rupp Arena in Lexington for Arkansas and Kentucky.
The team would need that confidence as it moved into a top 5 showdown with the blue blood of college basketball. Kentucky, led by head coach Rick Pitino, welcomed the Hogs to historic Rupp Arena.
Kentucky became...
The Wildcats had won 33 straight on their home floor and had their sights set on number 34 as they jumped out to a 15-point lead. But Scotty Thurman had other ideas.
Well, I know there was a lot of trash talking between myself and Roger Rose that night.
Razorbacks forced Kentucky to misfire on 30 of their 40 three-point attempts. The Hogs prevailed 90-82.
That was one of my favorite all-time wins, is to knock off Kentucky at Kentucky after being behind.
But that was a zenith of that season. That's when you really felt like we've got a really, really good chance. For those guys to go in there in '94 and win like that in that fashion, and back when Kentucky was good, it It was a better Kentucky program. They were rolling back then. And those guys celebrating and going crazy in there. And Coach Richardson kind of giving a little quick, fiery little speech about this is what we do. This is what we were expected to come in here and win.
That's history. We were supposed to do that. You see? That's how you look at it. That's why I say it's a day at the office. That was a day at the office.
The following week, the Razorbacks were back at number 1. They dispatched the remainder of their regular season opponents with relative ease, though they did need some overtime heroics from number 30 in Baton Rouge.
Thurman off the pick from back. Oh, again! Scotty Thurman does it again!
It was never really a shot that I feel like I couldn't make, and I always knew that, you don't make any of the shots that you don't take.
Oh, Scotty was the man.
With 26 games under their belt, Arkansas was headed to the postseason. But the Razorbacks' hopes of winning their first ever SEC tournament quickly fell apart. A revenge-minded Kentucky stormed into the Pyramid in Memphis and upset the Hogs in the semifinal round.
We knew we were pretty good, but during the one-game seasons, you got to show up for all those games.
That was a big blow, but it was an eye-opener. To me, we refocused because we had just gotten beat, and we shouldn't have.
Going into the NCAA tournament, I think it gave us the extra push that we needed to not be full of ourselves and to not feel like we couldn't be beaten, because when you lose a couple early and then you run off 11, 12 straight, it's really easy to forget what that feeling could be like.
Looking back on it, it may not have been a bad thing. It's hard for these teams to have these long runs. Maybe a conference tournament loss might have got them reset, recalibrated, refocused.
The Razorbacks began the 1994 NCAA Tournament a short drive from home in Oklahoma City as the number 1 seed in the Midwest Regional. The team with the worst regular season record in the field, the Aggies from North Carolina A&T, were waiting in the opening round.
The first round games, anything can happen.
You got to win the first one to play the second. And if you don't win that one, we're going home and we're packing.
Arkansas scored the game's first 10 points, but the Aggies fought back. They cut the lead to 4 by halftime and stayed within striking distance for much of the second half. But Corliss Williamson put the team on his back, scoring 24 points in 34 minutes as the Hogs pulled away for a 94-79 win.
I remember thinking after that game, okay, we'll play better now. We got that game done. We survived it. It wasn't a 16 beating a 1. We handled business. Now you got Georgetown.
The Hoyas from Georgetown entered their second round showdown with Arkansas as a 9 seed in the tournament. An iconic college basketball program in the 80s, Georgetown and head coach John Thompson had profoundly influenced both the Razorbacks and Nolan Richardson.
There wasn't very many African-American coaches back in the 80s, and John won the national championship in '84. His teams played so hard.
Corliss and Scotty, all those guys, they're at that age when Georgetown was really good, when they were younger, so they got to see firsthand how tough they were.
But Scotty would not be around for long. He was ejected for leaving the bench during a first-half altercation between Clint McDaniel and Georgetown's Robert Churchwell.
I didn't do anything. I didn't throw any punches. I didn't even make it to the altercation. I just stepped one foot on the floor, and the referee was standing there, and he was like, "You gotta go." It just so happened that the guys who were actually involved in the altercation didn't get ejected. And so I wound up watching the majority of that game from the locker room. And Corliss came in, put his arm around me, and was like, "Hey, we're gonna win this one for you."
And they did. Dwight Stewart made up for Thurman's absence, knocking down all 4 of his 3-point attempts and leading the Hogs to an 85-73 win.
Close, hard fought, just a defensive battle.
It was a battle that came with a heavy price. A senior leader was lost for the remainder of the tournament.
Unfortunately, Roger Crawford broke his foot that night. We wanted to honor him, so we went and got the 31 badge made up at a local sporting goods store. Got it done on a Monday or Tuesday, had it sewn on, and we're going off to Dallas the next week.
Reunion Arena in Dallas was affectionately known as Barnhill South when Arkansas competed in the Southwest Conference. And for the 1994 Sweet 16, Razorback fans reassembled there in huge numbers. The team would take on Tulsa,
Arkansas's Nolan Richardson going against a school he led to the NIT championship in 1981.
The school that had given Nolan Richardson his first Division I job.
I just remember all the ironies for Coach Richardson in that whole week, the build-up. Oh, by the way, he's got to play his old school. And oh, by the way, he's lost to them before, and he has history with them. And you just felt like it was going to be a grind. Tulsa was good.
The teams had played earlier in the season. A Corliss Williamson jump hook with 3 seconds to play lifted the Hogs to a 2-point win on the road. But in Dallas, the Golden Hurricane was reduced to a tropical storm.
Thurman.
Got Collier on his hip.
Arkansas dominated, shooting 66% from the floor. Their defensive demon, Clint McDaniel, scored 19 points in the 103-84 win.
And so they're a really good team, but we were kind of on a mission. At that moment, I think they just ran up against a buzzsaw.
Arkansas was playing its best basketball when it counted most.
It was as focused a team as I've seen, because they know they're on a mission and they know they've got a chance.
That was a sense of relief game. When that game is over, it was like, whew, okay, now we're 1 win away from the Final Four.
That win would have to come against one of college basketball's marquee programs. In 1994, the University of Michigan was seeking a 3rd straight trip to the Final Four. Their biggest star, Chris Webber, had departed for the NBA. But Jalen Rose, Juwan Howard, Jimmy King, and Ray Jackson were still there.
To get to the Final Four, you got to play the Fab Five -1. I mean, it doesn't get any bigger or better than match up like that. I've always wanted to play the best teams if we could.
More than 16,000 screaming fans, including the First family, turned out to see the 1-seed Razorbacks and the 3rd-seed Wolverines in the Elite Eight. Most wore red.
Green Arena sells out with Razorback fans. There's a few Michigan fans here or there, but even as teams lost, more Razorback fans are buying up those tickets.
And in the first half, they were in hog heaven. Though the Razorbacks missed their first 6 shots, they went on to stun the Wolverines with a 20-1 run, capped off by an Alex Dillard 3-pointer. They led by 9 at the half, but they knew there was more work to do.
Michigan's capable of a 8-0 run themselves, or a 10-0 run, or a 12-2 run where they could take control of this game.
While Juwan Howard dominated inside, scoring 30 points on 17 shots, the Razorbacks hounded Michigan shooters into missing 14 of their 17 3-point attempts.
And so we were out there to prove again that we belonged, and it was one of those things where they didn't have the depth we felt, and the pace of the game kind of changed in the second half.
Michigan cut the lead to a single possession with a minute to play, but the Razorbacks knocked down their free throws and punched their ticket to Charlotte.
Just a dream come true. We're going to the Final Four. We've been there, so we know what it's like. So can we keep our focus for another week?
I'd been there before, and I was proud of that, but now I get a second chance. I couldn't have felt any prouder of the players and what they had accomplished. And now all we had left was to win it. I felt we had an excellent chance of winning it. I really did.
The city of Charlotte has really geared up for, I think, the biggest sporting event in college basketball.
The Final Four, the elite of college basketball, the culmination of one of America's most popular sporting events. In 1994, the NCAA staged its championship finale in the hoops hotbed of Charlotte, North Carolina. Duke, Florida, Arizona, and Arkansas would battle it out for the national championship. For Coach Nolan Richardson, the Final Four presented a challenge. When your team has reached the pinnacle of the sport, how do you convince them they're the underdog?
Scotty and I've talked about it many times. Coach Richardson had that team believing. No one has any respect for you. No one thinks you're very good. And he hammered that into them all year. I'm like, Scotty, y'all were #1 for like 8 weeks. You did get respect.
But the events of semifinal Saturday called that into question. When tournament officials changed the time for Arkansas' shoot-around that day, no one told the Razorbacks. The team arrived for their hour-long walkthrough, only to be forced off the court after 8 minutes.
Oh my God, and I went berserk. Somebody dropped the ball. And at that time, I could care less somebody who dropped the ball. The ball was dropped and our kids or getting cheated out of 40, 50 minutes of practice.
You can't overcome that. How can you not have a game day practice? How can you not get shots up? How can you not go through some walkthroughs if you're wanting to show some plays or do some scout or do anything? You don't get to do it. And that was a big thing. I don't think anybody was out to get Arkansas, but that's the fuel that you use to build this big fire.
I used it as a motivation.
Motivation to win against the Pac-10 champion Arizona Wildcats, a team led by the best backcourt in America, Khalid Reeves and Damon Stoudemire.
Arizona was very talented. Khalid Reeves was a great scoring guard, could attack, could shoot it. Stoudemire was aggressive, one of the best players in the country. They were loaded.
They were the two best guards, of course, that everybody was talking about. McDaniel and Beck had other thoughts. They made them shoot tough shots, and that's all you can ask for.
I mean, you didn't want those two guys up on you, guarding you in a close game, especially when you're talking about a chance to go to the national championship game on the line.
The Razorbacks were relentless defending the Arizona guards. The Wildcats' role players, however, kept them alive and withstood an 11-0 Arkansas run to tie the game at the break. But in the second half, the Hogs, led by Corliss Williamson's 29 points, 13 rebounds, and 5 assists, picked up the intensity. Coach Richardson reminding his players of a lesson he had learned from his grandmother.
You approach an ant, get you a sledgehammer. When you put him out, he is out. When you reach a point and they don't want no more.
Breaking point.
Breaking point. That's it. Every game has a breaking point.
In this game, the breaking point came with 7 minutes to play. Trailing by 2, Dwight Stewart knocked down a three-pointer and sparked an 11-1 Arkansas run. The Razorbacks never looked back, winning 91-82. Their defense, which had forced Damon Stoudemire to shoot 2 for 18 in the first half, limited Khalid Reeves to a 1 for 14 performance in the second.
There's things that they wanted to do, their guards wanted to do, and our guys knew that's what they wanted to do. We're not going to let you do it. We're going to make you uncomfortable. They were uncomfortable the entire game, which led to our playing on Monday night.
You know, we stretched it a little bit, had a good win, and you're like, man, Monday night. Everyone in the country is going to be watching us play Monday night.
I mean, this feeling is good, but we have one more game left. We're here to try to win a national championship, not settle for being in the Final Four, not settle for making it to the championship game. We're here to win it.
There was something poetic about the Arkansas Razorbacks facing the Duke Blue Devils for the 1994 National Championship. One team on a seemingly endless search for respect, taking on the most admired program in college basketball. And in the build-up to the game, as if on cue, the so-called experts dismissed the Hogs.
Some of the stuff surrounding the Final Four and some of the guys on ESPN when they would talk about smart team's going to win. Duke's got smart kids. They said that on TV. Coach Richardson used all of that to those guys.
You know, the first time we go to the press conferences, that's all everyone wants to talk about is Duke and not us. And so when you get a team that feels like they're disrespected and they've got a lot to prove, you know, it's a pretty dangerous team, and that's what we were.
Duke had won 2 of the previous 3 NCAA tournaments, and head coach Mike Krzyzewski, appearing in his 6th Final Four, was already considered among the greatest coaching minds of all time. But Arkansas approached the coaching matchup with confidence.
There's the book coaches, and then there's the gut coaches. And coach was always a gut coach. What is it now, analytics? Do you call timeout, you know, late in the game, or let him play? Whatever his gut told him to do is what we're going to do. And it worked out pretty good.
And the coach believed his players were more than ready.
And I used to tell our guys, we are prepared for everybody. Nobody is prepared for us. We could play fast, we could play slow, we could play matchups, we could pick you up, press. We were never a predictable team. We were a team that was not in the box.
It was a titanic matchup. 2 heavyweights, unaccustomed to losing. Duke was led by its All-American forward Grant Hill and All-ACC performers Cherokee Parks and Antonio Lang. The game began with a thud. Unfortunately for Duke, it was Hill who made it. On the game's first possession, Duke's biggest star was down and for a moment out of the game.
And so I thought he was probably going to be out for a while, and to be quite honest, I didn't mind that. But you know, I didn't think he would be able to bounce back and be the Grant Hill that team needed him to be for them to be able to beat us.
But Hill would return and play all but 2 minutes of the contest. The two teams traded baskets to start until Arkansas hit a cold spell. With Williamson struggling inside against the 6'11 Parks, it was Scotty Thurman to the rescue.
We were behind early, and we couldn't get a bucket. He hit a little short corner. It was a nice little feathery shot. Next thing you know, he's burying a three. Next thing you know, the Razorbacks are taking the lead and playing pretty well. So we struggled early. We come back. We take a little lead. They went up by 5 or 6. We come back. We have a 1-point lead at the half, 34-33.
The Razorbacks were 20 minutes away from their first ever national championship. But as the final half began to unfold, it appeared the dream season might slip away.
The start of the second half was some of the worst basketball Arkansas played that year. We're up 1 at the half. You blink, and literally with like 17 minutes to go in the game, Hogs are down 10. And I'm thinking, oh, we've come this far. Duke's maybe a little better.
They came out of the dressing room and bang, next thing you know, we're 10 down. We got to go to the street fight now.
So he calls a timeout. Okay, we got them where we want them. They've had their run. It's time for our run.
You know, when he asked us what we wanted to do and we looked up at the clock and we're down 10, we were like, Coach, we got to pick up. You know, we need to pick up and press. And he was like, is that what you guys want to do? And we were like, yeah. He was like, okay, let's pick them up.
And if you're not in that huddle, you wouldn't know that. But it was calm, it was cool. We got them where we want them. They've had their run. It's our turn. Well, we go out and have a nice little run.
Nice indeed. Over the next 9 minutes, Arkansas outscored Duke 21-6 and forced 9 Blue Devil turnovers.
Right, yeah, that's the run. You know, normally it would be 3-4 minute spurts, but when you think about 21-6 in 9 minutes, you know, you're not going to lose most of those games going down the stretch.
A Chris Collins 3 with just over 5 minutes to go put the Blue Devils on top 63-62. It was their last lead of the night. The time had come for the Stars to take over. Corliss Williamson went first, imposing his will down low. Then it was Grant Hill's turn.
They sling it over to Grant Hill. He's kind of at the right top. Bam! He drilled it, and it was tied up.
With less than 90 seconds to go in the national championship game, Arkansas had the ball, and after a quick timeout, they executed the most important play in Razorback history.
Beck looking inside, nothing there, spits it out to McDaniel, exactly 1 minute to play.
Well, we tried to do a two-man game with Corey and Corliss on the left side in front of our bench. Didn't work out. Beck kicks it to Dwight, who was wide open.
Shot clock to 10. Beck to the baseline, spits it out to Stewart.
When Corey throws it out to Dwight, I look up at the clock and I see it's like 6. I'm thinking, ooh, if I catch this ball, I'm gonna have to shoot it.
You know, the clock was running down, you know, and it's a tie ball game. Dwight's a good shooter, so it wouldn't have bothered me if he took the shot. But he bobbled it a little bit, and so he got control of it and got it to Scotty, and he let it go.
Right side, Thurman. He's open for 3, good!
Holy moly. Yes!
In perfect basketball, Scotty shoots a high arching shot anyway. He's a rainbow shooter. And he caught it, and he rose up, and he shot that feathery high arch shot.
And if you go back and you look at the pictures for Sports Illustrated, you'll see Antonio Lanes with like his hands on top of the basketball. But in actuality, he was on the way down as the ball was going up because he had jumped from inside the lane.
And that ball goes right over the top. You can see that ball going in the air. That clock goes from 1 down to 0, and that ball's still in the air, and he drills it.
Scotty Thurman with his third 3. Arkansas leads it by 3 with 48 seconds to go.
A bit more pressure on Duke now.
A missed 3 and a made free throw later, it was over.
Grant Hill loses the ball. Dwight Stewart, out to McDaniel. Arkansas wins the national championship. The Arkansas Razorbacks have completed the dream season. And the Hogs have won the national championship 76-72 over the Duke Blue Devils.
The hug that Coach and I had has been seen by a bunch. And I just hugged him and I said, thanks, Coach, for taking me on this ride.
The joy of the players, the joy of our bench, the hugs, and Mike Krzyzewski stops Coach Richardson. And it's a really nice moment. It was just so much pride in that night, celebrating all the Razorback fans.
The first thing I said was to myself and looked upstairs, thank you, Lord, and say to my, Yvonne, we got you one. We got you one. Because she said, Daddy, you can win a national championship at Arkansas. And that's the first thing that came to my mind. We got you one, baby. Thank you, Lord.
This is a Channel 7 Sports special report. The Razorbacks road to the NCAA Final Four. With more, here's Jeff Wingfield.
The Arkansas Razorbacks national champion, 76-72 over Duke. Let's go live to Charlotte, North Carolina. Paul Eels and Gina Curry standing by. Paul, it's got to be bedlam there.
The celebration was beginning as I came out here, and I know the Hogs were going crazy. The basketball team, all of a sudden, Jeff, realizing what he had accomplished. As I walked out the door on a monitor leading through the exit, I could see Nolan Richardson hugging each and every one of his basketball players.
The '94 championship is the most wonderful sports memory, that I've ever had. And, of course, the state went insane.
Channel 7's Chris May is standing by. Over 10,000 in Bud Walton Arena tonight. Chris is now down on Dixon Street. And Chris, I can see that you are surrounded by some happy Razorback fans.
Well, I'm not sure if anyone can hear me or not, but welcome to Hog Heaven. We're here on Dixon Street in Fayetteville, and tens of thousands of Razorback fans are descending here on the street. It is a madhouse down here.
Chris, you seem to be getting pushed a little bit. How many people are out there? Can you even estimate it all?
It's a wild scene on Dixon Street. An endless flow of people are coming from the campus. They're coming from Bud Walton Arena. Tens of thousands have gathered here in the street. The police are trying to control the situation as best they can, as you can see here. It's a crazy scene. We'll throw it back to you in Little Rock. Go home!
I don't think Chris had much of a choice in that matter.
I got Tracy and my daughter Molly there. I was going to neat the basket, and Roger's sitting up there, and Roger said, "Hey, Coach, give me Molly." And so for, 5-10 seconds, there's Roger Crawford and my daughter sitting on the rim in the national championship.
They cut down the nets, and you're watching history right in front of you. It's the Final Four. It's one shining moment. It's Monday night. And on this one shining moment, it was the Arkansas Razorbacks.
After we had won the championship, I walk out and I'm recording. A few fans out there. And so I'm going up to the bus, walk on, get some video, calling the Hogs, whatever. Someone says, "Where's the national championship trophy? Who's got the trophy?" And Clint McDaniel comes walking out with the trophy. Almost like holding a baby,
And so then we went to the hotel, and my parents were there, and Corliss's parents were there, everybody's families were there. We enjoyed it with them. But when we got back to the hotel, there was so many Razorback fans, like we couldn't even really get through the lobby. It was crazy.
The following day, the national champions headed home for a raucous celebration inside Bud Walton Arena.
Tonight, the official welcoming home ceremonies of the 1994 college basketball national champions.
Everyone that walks in is being given one of these signs, a #1 Arkansas Razorback sign, and how appropriate that is. These fans are ready to go. We're ready to go. The Hog Wild Band setting up behind us. It's going to be one more wild night in Fayetteville.
Let me say to this team, on behalf of everybody in Arkansas, you have given us more self-esteem, more pride in what you've accomplished. You've brought us together, and we thank you for what you are, what you've done, and what you've accomplished. 9 years ago, we had a coaching vacancy. I will tell you that I thought at that time and believed there was only one coach who had all of the attributes that we needed to take us to the highest level. The greatest coach in the country, Nolan Richardson.
It takes more than one to do any job. This is a team. We are a family. We got the opportunity to become the #1 team. 300 teams started, but only one finished.
Well, it's a pleasure for me to play for this team, for this coach, and to have these fans support me.
And on my behalf and the team's behalf, I would just like to say that this championship is not only for us, but for you also. Thank you. We have a wonderful coach. We have a wonderful team, wonderful administrative staff, but we also have the greatest fans in America, and that's here in my home state, Arkansas.
One of my favorite memories after it happened was the parade, because it was so exciting. It was so much fun. It was, you know, the fans were just going crazy, and it seemed like they were everywhere, and people were just like rushing the car to shake hands with Coach or the governor. You know, it was like no security or anything, nothing like that. It was just people could just storm the car, and they were. It seemed like the celebration around Central Arkansas lasted for days and days.
Today, 30 years after that national championship season, it's clear the celebration never ended. All thanks to a team and a coach who always believed anything was possible.
I am not a politician, so I don't make big promises. But there is one promise that I must make, and I will say to you that we will be there.
It was incredible success, and not just Final Fours, national championships, Final Eights, conference championships, conference tournament championships. It's been hard for us to win them since then. But I love that run of success. That is the most unprecedented time in Razorback basketball.
These guys will always be the 1994 national champion, and we represent the university and this great state.
The relationships are what I remember most. What I can appreciate is that, you know, Coach taking a bunch of young guys from different places and making them bond together. You know, it seems like it's just basketball, but it was more life than anything.
Each championship that I was involved in was the greatest moment of my life from a basketball standpoint. And then now I win the granddaddy of them all. This is the ultimate goal that you had set since you were 10 years old. I mean, what are my chances of winning a national championship from where I come from? So when you look back at '94 and put all this around it, it's one of the greatest feelings anyone could ever have.